quantum physics to metaphysics with life in between. Here's your host, medical intuitive and vibrational healer, Patti Conklin.
Hi, everyone. This is Patti Conklin with quantum physics to metaphysics with life in between. Thank you so much for joining me this evening for this show. I have an extraordinary gentleman on with me tonight to talk about his life and his work, and I'm sure most of you know who he is. And it's James Wanless, PhD. I always think of him as Voyager. Now, James, I'm going to ask you right before we get started. I say tarot, but I'm upstate New York. Is it tarot? Is it tarot? What is it?
It's any of the above. Tomatoes, whatever O's, you know. When I first went into the cards, my mom, who was horrified by the whole notion, said, "Oh, you're doing that tarot stuff. Tarot."
Tarot.
Whatever, you know. But I was once on a plane, and I had my cards out. I don't know what I was doing. And the woman sitting next to me kept looking at my cards. She finally said, "So, what are you doing? What is that?" Blah, blah, blah. And I just didn't want to talk for some reason. And finally, she kept pushing me. And I finally said, "I'm a tarotist." A tarotist. Now, that sounded a little bit suspicious, like terrorist.
Right. A tarotist. I was wondering if she was going to ask if it was a vegetable.
Terrible. She wanted to stay alive. You know, she freaked out for
I can imagine. That kept her quiet the rest of the flight.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yep. I've had those times. So would you kind of fill me in on this? Because, you know, you and I have passed each other by at different conferences and so forth, but we've never had a chance to sit down. And quite honestly, I'll tell you up front, every single person, the 5 times that I've attempted to have a tarot reading, no one has been willing to read me. And I always wondered about that, but kind of give me the history of how you came to be with the series that you have, the Voyager series, and all the other series you've created since then.
Oh boy, do you want the short story or the long story?
I want the start me out with where you were born and what mom first had to say.
Well, thank you so much. Actually, I'm going to go back to when I was a professor of political science. That's why I have that PhD, powerful head damage.
There you go.
Initials.
Yeah.
So I was very much left brain, and you know, I'm pretty scientific still today. I'm very analytical, and I love evidence, material evidence. So in any event, I knew after, it was just at Columbia University, and I started teaching, but I knew this is it. I kind of said, like, this is it. I mean, I'm supposed to be at the pinnacle of something, and I'm not feeling like that at all. There must be something more. So I got involved in meditation. And while I was doing that, I had a chance to start traveling the world, to kind of go on my vision quest to understand, who am I really? You know, who am I really here? And, you know, after a couple of years in Africa and the Middle East, I finally got to India. And I wanted to go to Nepal and climb the big mountains there, the snow mountains, and be a hero and that kind of stuff. But I got hepatitis, really sick in downtown Kathmandu.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, no climbing with that.
No, forget it. I couldn't even get out of bed. But I heard that there was a meditation course going on for Westerners in a Tibetan Buddhist monastery just outside the city. And so I signed up for that because all I could do was sit around anyway.
Right.
So I went to the monastery. Somehow I got there and sat there for a whole month. You know, getting up at 4:15, all that kind of Buddhist, you know, meditation stuff.
Right.
And after 30 days, I was healed. I mean, I never took any medication, and I had no more hepatitis. And at that point, I don't think I ever had any more political science either. I think that was history. I walked out of that monastery, kind of. It was time to reinvent, rebirth myself, and seeing myself in a new light. So that got me on the spiritual path, and ultimately that led to the cards.
Yeah. Wow. And what kind of time span in between that, between Kathmandu and your first set of cards?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so I spent after the India experience of being a meditator. I mean, I was an everyday meditator, heavy duty. I spent another year and a half, 2 years going through East Asia, Southeast Asia, Bali, all these great places, Japan.
Right.
Got back to America after 4 years on my vision quest.
Wow.
The problem was I had to pay the rent.
Don't we all?
It was pretty backpacking back then, but oh my gosh, I'm in San Francisco, the Bay Area, and the rent are high.
Wow.
Now oh my God. So
we're going to need to break for a minute, but I want to hear how you survive in San Francisco Bay Area after just getting back from Kathmandu. This is Patti Conklin with Quantum Physics to Metaphysics. My guest tonight is James Wanless, and we'll see you on the other side. So everyone, hi, we're back. This is Patti Conklin with Quantum Physics to Metaphysics with my guest, James Wanless. So you were talking before break about coming from Kathmandu, getting to San Francisco and the Bay Area, and how do you pay the rent? What'd you do?
Exactly. I'm on the spiritual path. Come on,
That's right. That's right. You're supposed to sit out in the street and just do meditation and hum, right?
I'm a teacher, and I think I'm a really good teacher, actually. Yeah. But started teaching at these little kind of metaphysical Asian-type institutes in San Francisco, meditation and, these kind of esoteric courses. And then one day, I realized one of my fellow faculty colleagues was reading the cards. And I thought, what the heck? I hated cards as a kid, by the way. I hated cards. I'm not a card player at all.
Right,
but anyway,
right.
So I did this card reading, and I loved it. And I got turned on. When I realized what my lifetime cards are, according to that tarot system, I was stuck. I am hooked. This is a powerful, transformative process. It's fun, and it's immediate, and I can do it.
Wow.
And so that was history after that. I just kept going, took a few classes, started doing readings professionally for $10, lived in my office in San Francisco. I lost all my hair, paid my dues. They say money, follow your bliss and the money will come, but they never tell you when.
Exactly, exactly.
But this and being fulfilled by what you do, you really don't care that much. And I did. So I had this reading, and it blew my mind. I found out what my life cards are in the tarot, and I totally bought into that because it's so true. And I thought, God, this is a very powerful, transformative process. It's immediate, it's fun, and I can do it. So I took some classes, and I was off and running.
Yeah. What was that? I mean, the times that I've attempted to have them done, they've done 3 cards, I guess, that you cut in the beginning, and everyone will say to me, you're an amazing intuitive, you're an incredible intuitive, and then that's as far as they go. And so, what was it that was specifically said to you that made you go, yes, this is definitely the right track?
Well, it's about the cards, and I think when you use the cards as a psychology in a very holistic, archetypal way, the entire deck, particularly Voyager, my deck, is a map of life. And I trust the map. I trust the cards. And so it's not some psychic kind of guessing game. Who are you?
Right.
This stuff at all. You
right.
know. So pick a card, and we'll start talking interactively with you because it's an interactive process here.
Right.
So it's so easy that way, frankly. It's a conversation using cards for insight and inspiration.
Are you really, though? I mean, I always say with astrology, astrology is only as good as the astrologer. Is it the same with the cards that, you're using it as a a starting point. I'm assuming the card, but then the psychology comes into it, and your own intuition about what that means for that person, or kind of give me a sense of that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have to be an intuitive or an empath.
Right.
The best counselors have a lot of life experience, which I do, but you have to be very empathic, and very engaging, and also educate, and also enroll and enlist people as you empower them. These are the 6 E's of effective communication. I love the E. So I'm pretty intuitive, and I ask questions. I mean, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
So I say, well, this card means blah, blah, blah. I'm wondering, how do you feel about that, Patti? That's the way I work, you know.
Interesting. And then you're taking more information just from the cards that are being played out, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's all information. Number one, information rules. All cards are information. And we just want to see if this is information that's workable or appropriate for you. But, you know, I don't do any of the old traditional tarot stuff. I don't do these layouts. I don't shuffle the cards. I don't have to do any of it. For me, it's just question and answer.
Wow.
Q&A. I follow my curiosity intelligence, which is way high. I have my CQ, they call it now.
Yep, absolutely.
We pick cards, we get answers, and at the end, we're like, wow, okay, I get it, let's go.
Wow. So we're talking today about the Voyager Tarot fortune creation. So let me step back just a little bit. When did you create the first Voyager deck? And was that the first deck that you created, actually?
Yeah, well, I only have 2 decks of cards. I have a nature deck called Sustain Yourself, but that's 25 years later. But I started making the Voyager cards in 1981.
Wow.
And I realized I was really not pleased and maybe even bored with the classic tarot. It's a bunch of only white people, very Eurocentric, European, very medieval, full of violence, blood and swords and all this kind of stuff. I said, you know, that's not the symbology or the map of life I want to follow at all. It's the 21st century. Let's make a deck that is truly multicultural, you know, and break free of some of these old medieval symbols here. And that, so instead of, for example, swords in classical tarot, I have crystals. So that was my philosophy behind it. And then my neighbor, who was a great artist, wanted to do a collage project. And I just, one day out of the blue, again, under the influence of caffeine, I said, Ken, let's make The Magician. And he said, who's that? What's that? And so we started there, and we started making the cards. I would find all the imagery. It's all photo montage. It's all cut and paste from magazines. It's so rich and lovely. I don't think there'll ever be another deck quite like this here. This is the way we worked for 4 years. I mean, it took 4 years to get the deck done, the book written, and published out to the world.
Wow.
So it's 85. Basically, Voyager has been around worldwide for over 30 years now. I had no idea it'd keep going the way it has.
Right. Well, everybody that I know seems to be using that one, and I have to say, on those few that I had the readings of, they were the old blood and swords and everything, and when they would just do their 3-card spread and then just put them in their lap and just look at me, and they say, I don't want to go any further.
Yeah,
and
so,
I'm like, what is that all about?
Problem, it's the tarot world, the field of tarot is old. It's occultish.
I see.
And it's not very progressive at all. So I kind of distance myself from it. What I do love about the tarot field, however, is all the new decks that are being created. I mean, most of them are kind of novelties. A lot of cat decks and, which are very entertaining. Novelties, and then so many other decks, unfortunately, are just playoffs, the old stuff. This is the 21st century. We need a new roadmap. That does not work.
I hear that. Is there an example of one that really shocked you, a reading that you did, a session that you did? Was there one that just really stood out in your mind throughout the years?
You mean of other decks?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, of your deck, of your Voyager deck, of you doing a reading with someone. Is there any one that just stood out like crazy?
No.
No.
I wish I had a nice story about that, but honestly,
are they all intriguing in their own way?
Totally.
Yeah.
That is the right answer, and because it's again, I'm a left brain kind of scientific trained person. It blows my mind every time I do a consult with the cards. Like, oh my God, how can these totally right cards keep coming up? That to me is the inexplicable. That's the mystery.
Yes.
That is spectacular, and I love that.
Right. One of the reasons I've been doing this show for years and just adding on to it is my whole world of quantum physics and metaphysics, of how do we marry science and spirituality, because I don't think that they are opposites, and I don't think they're separate. And what you're describing to me is the same thing, is that you can come from a psychological standpoint or from a linear standpoint, but you still have that intuitive piece coming in and blending and merging right in with it.
Absolutely. And of course, when we're picking cards face down, I mean, that is going into what the bleep.
Exactly.
This quantum weirdness that is out there, mysticized of physicists, I mean, but I think at some level there probably is always going to be some mystery, and I'm willing to accept that. A lot of people don't like that. I mean, actually, most of my clients, for example, are women.
Yeah.
Okay. And mostly 50-ish women. I mean, there's a demographic there, and for good reasons. So men will think this is crazy. How picking cards face down it doesn't make sense. It's not rational. It's not logical, blah, blah, blah. And I say, you're right. It's not. Pick a card.
Pick a card.
Pick a card, they go, oh my gosh, whoa, how did this work? And I say,
how does and then they're just looking at you as the master of all, that you can manage that. I mean, we've got the same demographics, I think, in terms of our client base. And I always have a tendency to say, it seems like we spend the first 20, 30 years of our life learning to be human. And then after 30, that 30 to 60 range, all of a sudden we're learning how to be spiritual, and what does that mean, and opening up and being willing to explore their psyche a little bit more and go deeper.
I think there's a good explanation for that, actually, again, physically.
Yeah.
It's the female brain. There's a great book called The Female Brain. I love it. I always forget her name because it's a very long, strange name. She's a psychologist in San Francisco and a really good writer.
Yeah.
And a brain neuroscientist.
Oh, yeah.
And so when a woman is young, her hormones, her brain, it's all about mating. Yeah. Then after you have the first baby, it's all about them. It's all about being mom. And that's, again, it's the brain. I mean, you can literally look at the brain, and it is geared up for motherhood. Once a woman hits the menopausal age, it's all over. For the first time in a woman's life, it's about themselves.
Yeah.
It's about me and the meaning of my life, and where am I going, and should I be with this husband or husband, or and that's what we have. And that's where most of the kind of the New Age spirituality is around. It is female based.
Yeah. No doubt. Where are we? Where are we? And I'm kind of opposite on that, in that while I'm still predominant female in my client base, I'm getting a tremendous amount of engineers, physicians, and physicists in my classes who are also seeking that other part. So we need to take a break right now. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. My guest today is James Wanless. And James, where can folks find you?
They can find me on Facebook all over the place, James Wanless, Wanless, or on jameswanless.com, my website.
Beautiful. All right, folks, stay tuned. We'll be back to continue this adventure in just a minute. Hi, Hi, everyone. This is Patti Conklin, and you're listening to Quantum Physics to Metaphysics with Life in Between. How do we bring science and spirituality together? Because I don't believe they're meant to be separate. I believe that from a linear standpoint and from a spiritual standpoint, we can make sense of either or. And so this whole show is about bringing people's ideas and thoughts together from all over the world. And today, I'm very honored to have my guest, James Wanless. We're talking about the demographics of people that are using the cards and how they work. I mean, how you're bringing in such linear information, as James was saying earlier, with having the cards face down and not even looking at the cards. How does that work? I'm doing a two-pronged question here.
Oh,
Demographics of women and kind of age group, but they must get totally blown away when the cards are facing down.
That's true. And you know, back to the metaphysical market and who's reading most of these new metaphysical books. I saw an amazing amount of research recently, and it's predominantly female. Female, and predominantly 50-ish women here. But it's interesting, again, when you look at women's brains compared to men's brains,
right?
There is a difference. Women have a very large corpus callosum, which is the connecting tissue between the right and left brain. So women actually, and this is scientific, have a tendency to think on all parts of the brain when they focus on a particular subject. A man can focus on that same subject and only one part of the brain lights up. So I'm not going to make any judgments about that, but
Exactly.
Women's brains, you women have a very open brain, open to a lot of different inputs of information coming from everywhere. So thinking that cards face down is crazy is not particularly, for a man that might be crazy, but for a woman, since they're, because this is what women love, it's kind of an intuitive thing, and it's a woman's thing, I suppose. But I think it's because of the nature of the consciousness and intelligence that women have. And it certainly has panned out in my life. Your question actually is, how does this work? That's a male question. That's what men would ask.
That's what men want to know. But as a female, every test we've ever done, I'm split brain, pretty much on par. But I consider myself a more of a masculine brain in a feminine body. So I want to know, how does it work?
If I gave you an explanation, number one, it's a bunch of words. We love words to explain the mystery. Honestly, it's all a mystery. But it's everything, all of our life, everything is coming out of the life force. You can call that the Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it, the mystery. But it's the life force, that which put everything in motion, out of which everything is manifest.
Right.
Here. And that is we can't even speak of it. It's so awesome. It's so infinite. So for us to try and explain some things and put words with our little brain to understand this infinite source of all intelligence forever.
Right. It's not going to...
I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to.
It's pretty tiny, isn't it? Yes. When you put it in that perspective, it's true. It's true. Yes. The more I know I'll be an embryo. I understand that it just continues on.
But I think it's a very great thing to try and understand what it is. But I'm a big believer in the most important word in the English language is and. It's so valuable to really relish the mystery, because we're living in a very uncertain period of human history. We don't
absolutely.
Know tomorrow. So it's all a mystery. So actually picking cards face down is so much appropriate, totally in sync with, going into the mystery, trusting the mystery, picking cards or going into the mystery to get answers and insights and inspiration from the unknown. See, people don't like that. They don't understand that. And so I kind of understand both sides of wanting to understand, but also appreciating that we don't understand.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I got that. So
well, that's your bridge between quantum science and metaphysics.
And metaphysics, yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it really is. It really is, because we want to understand it, and yet at the same time, it can be a tangible and intangible. Our words are attempting to make it tangible, and our experience is making it intangible.
And
Um,
we're meant to try and understand it because, the latest rage and intelligence studies now are the CQ. The
mhm.
CQ, which I thought was creativity intelligence quotient, is not. It's the curiosity
Yeah.
intelligence. And I'll tell you one thing, if there is one thing about PhDs, they're not necessarily smarter. My counselor laughed at me when I took an IQ test because I couldn't do half that crap. It doesn't make any difference about intelligence. It's about curiosity. I want
Yeah.
to know, and that's the life force. So
Yeah.
if you're not curious and all you want to know is about the latest football game or your show on TV, and that's about it,
And
you're,
that's it.
the curiosity is the life force.
Yeah.
So us trying to understand everything is where it's at completely.
I think that I've traveled to 66 countries, and my sons tease me that I'll forever have wanderlust, because even if I'm not on the road teaching, if I'm home for more than 2 months, I have to get on a plane and go somewhere to learn something. And it's not that
Yeah,
I'm taking classes; I'm studying human behavior,
you are
and
you are a voyager
I am a voyager.
who is following their curiosity and going places and doing things, not a voyeur. Voyeur,
Right?
and I think this is a voyeur nation. We are
Yes.
a nation of spectators, and it should be a
Right.
nation of participants.
Parts.
No
Oh, I totally
spectators
agree. I
allowed.
totally
People just
agree.
watching other people do their stuff. Oh, that is so boring. Who cares about other people's stuff? What about
Yeah.
your stuff?
Yeah. 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 When you created the cards, when you created your first deck, um, do you feel like, I mean, I know you had your artist living next door, but how did you interpret from decks that you had seen before, intuitively what you wanted to see, or was there a specific, again, because I'm a neophyte when it comes to the tarot, was there a specific piece, um, probably not one piece, but multiple pieces of information that you wanted to be able to have people see or learn about themselves?
Ooh, good question, Patty. I like that one. It's all.
Good.
It's all. Well, yeah, again, I had been doing cards with a classic medieval tarot deck. I was doing consultations with them, so I knew kind of the basic structure of a tarot deck. I pretty
Mhm.
much knew what I wanted, with the cards. But I also brought in my own life experience to
Yeah.
a huge amount. And my spiritual opening was in the Buddhist psychology.
Hmm.
So I brought in a lot of Buddhism into Voyager, and I'm very shamanistic. I had a great shaman teacher when I lived down in Guatemala for a year. So I try and bring all that shamanic information in.
Yeah.
And because I'm really interested in psychology and neuroscience, I tried to plug in as much of that as possible. That's why Voyager is a totally unique deck. It honors tradition and the ancient and brings it up to the 21st century, with the latest developments in terms of research and what we know.
Right. Right. Because one of the things that I've always said when people have said, "Oh, do you want me to do a session on you or whatever?" Those few people that I'll let do it, it's like they give me the past. I'm like, I don't need the past. I want the now. I want where I am now and where my strong suits are and where my suits could be developed a little bit further.
Well, those are the right questions to
Yeah.
ask. And I mean, a reason why tarot has been so debased, and I think rightly so in a lot of ways, it's fortune telling, hocus pocus.
Exactly.
Voyager is fortune creation, future creation. It's a proactive tool. So we pick cards as a map that gives us information on where we can go and possibilities and all that kind of stuff. And from all of that information, we choose what to do, where
Right.
to go to create our future. So the problem for me with a lot of the old tarot, it's very disempowering. You're
Yes.
going to somebody with all the rings and telling you all this stuff, which may or may not be true, frankly.
Right.
And like, wait a minute, who's that person, by the way? This is about empowering kind of process where you're giving the person the tools and the information and possibilities, but then they have to pick it up and as a Voyager go on with it in their life to create and manifest their future.
Right, right. I mean, it just seems like through the years that, I've been doing this now for 21 years and in just observing people, when I got out of high school, I was married to an ex-Cornell professor. So I had the professor and academia sitting in front of me all the time. So that piqued my curiosity. But in beginning to travel, I realized that there was 10,000 different ways to get from point A to point B. And one of the things that I saw over and over again when people would approach me and say, oh, gee, I just heard your lecture and I want to read you, was that exactly what you said, the disempowering of power. And if people weren't Voyagers, if they weren't people who had the curiosity to go out and find out for themselves, then they were giving all their power to whoever was doing the reading. And what I realized was so many of those people wanted that power from that individual. And it really created a distaste in my mouth of just how much people were willing to give power away.
Yeah, I had a hand reading, palm reading, and when I was 18 in New York City. I don't know why. I guess I was taken by some other friends who wanted to go. And I'll never forget what she said, because you are so vulnerable to the fortune tellers. And she said I'd have a crippling critical disease when I was in my middle ages.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'm still, am I middle-aged now, or what's the deal? When am I going to...
But I mean, that's such a, a fear-based, people look at fear as false evidence appearing real. I take fear as forgetting every available resource. And that's what I've got inside of me, to choose my own decisions and to make my decisions and to create my future, and not be sitting and hearing that fearful stuff from somebody else. Because we'll have people who will call the office and say, well, I want to fax you what the readings that I've been getting lately from the psychics and the tarot readers. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't want them. We're going to start from ground zero. But as a culture, do you think we're moving away from the old readings? I mean, do you think that there's people like yourself now coming on board that are really helping people understand how to be personally responsible?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why coaching has become so popular. Coaching is not like somebody's going to tell you and have the coach do it for you. No way. They'll tell you.
Exactly.
You have to do something on your end. And I even have a coaching Voyager certification around that, because it's not about just picking cards and looking at them. It's picking cards and being them. Then you grow.
This is Patti Conklin, Quantum Physics to Metaphysics, with my guest, James Wanless, and we'll be back right after the break. Thanks, everyone, for being with me tonight. This is Patti Conklin, Quantum Physics to Metaphysics, and my guest tonight is James Wanless, and we are just having a great time. We realize our brains align very well together. And talking about his Voyager series, we're actually going to be doing 3 shows together. We're going to be doing the one we're doing right now, which we kind of labeled Fortune Creation. And the second one is going to be Voyager Do-It-Yourself Mindfulness Psychology, which is what I can't wait for. And then Green Wisdom, Sustain Yourself cards. And this is a new 101 Nature cards. This is a new deck for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it's a couple of years old by now. But, it's funny, because I knew after being in the tarot world for a while professionally that it was limited in terms of where I could go. So I started making these little collage cards over the holidays when I didn't have much work. And because I believe in nature. Nature is the ultimate teacher and mentor and healer of life.
Yes.
Okay. So I just started making these little green wisdom nature cards. I didn't even know what to call them, wild cards. And I just kept making them because intuitively I knew it was the right thing. I didn't know exactly why. But so for 20 years, I just kept making them until one day the word sustainability, but personal sustainability, self-sustainability, self-renewability
Yeah,
came into play. It really caught my attention, and nature knows how to do that because nature's what, a couple on Earth, 2.5 billion years old. I think nature
exactly.
knows how to renew itself.
That's right. That's right.
And we are
Well,
nature, by the way.
we are nature, that's for sure. So talk to me a little bit about fortune creation. How, what does that mean for our listening audience?
Well, I think, first of all, fortune is unfortunately, in a way, linked in with money, which it certainly can be. But to me, what do we want in life today? We want a good life or a fortunate life or whatever kind of life we want to call it, but we want it all. To me,
Yeah.
that's the fortune principle. We want it all. We really do. We want to be happy. We want to be healthy. We want to be wealthy enough. We want to be sustainable. We want to be creative, free, blah. And we even want our tacos on the side. We
Oh,
want we want it all. But the point is, how do we get it all? And that's where the Voyager map of life comes in. And it really is it's a growth path. It's a map. It's not just information. It's about being the cards. And if you actually treat it like I do as a spiritual practice of a card a day to keep the shrink away.
right.
And
I love that. A card a day to keep the shrink away. That's
it's
perfect.
the truth. I'll talk about that next time when we talk about Voyager psychology.
Awesome.
But treating it as your yoga, your spiritual discipline practice of taking on the attributes of that card you pick from the mystery to live out life force, you will grow. If
Yeah.
you do that for a year, you will stretch yourself, you will find your magic, you'll be the priestess. All of these are cards in the deck, all these personality archetypes. So you really tap into your own inner resources.
Yeah.
And it's a fun, entertaining way to do it. And it
Right.
works.
I think it's so important that people really understand that. When my sons were little, we had affirmation cards, little affirmation cards, and I put them in a bowl. And so every morning, even in first grade, they would come downstairs, and the first thing they'd do is go to the bowl, and they'd pick a card. And it would say, creativity or joyfulness or peace or whatever. But what the question they'd ask is, what part of my personality do I most need to pay attention to today? And then they draw a card. Do you know those boys are 34 and 35? And when they walk on this houseboat, the first thing they do is go to those cards. And still today draw a card. And now they're teaching their sons to draw cards. So I think anytime we've got something that we can sustain and look at and grow from is so incredibly important.
Insanely important because we're so distracted,
Yes.
and we go down these rabbit holes, particularly on social media.
Yeah.
We get taken down in these away from ourselves. So we need a way of self-remembering.
Yes.
Like Plato said, the path to enlightenment is remembering who you are. Remember yourself. And affirmation cards, Voyager cards, all these cards help us remember ourselves. And
Yes.
what's interesting about neuroscience also is that we remember things the most in our life when we're surprised.
Yes.
When somebody did something to you out of nowhere, you remember that, I guarantee. Same thing with cards and affirmation cards or Voyager cards, whatever cards, because they come out of the unknown, the mystery. Like, oh, I picked look at that card. Oh my gosh, I got the magician. That power of surprise sticks. It has stickiness.
Right.
The word stickiness. It will stick in your consciousness. It has an imprint on your psyche. And that's where change and transformation happens.
That's amazing. So tell me, are we in a space now with the Voyager cards and your readings and so forth? Do people need to be with you in person? Can you do it on Skype? How does a reading work now these days? And are you doing them even?
Well, I travel the world, and wherever I go, I'm so busy doing readings and consultations with the cards. I mean, it's over the top. But
I know. I remember being at a conference and we were both speaking and I stood in line for about a half hour to at least get signed up and I gave up. So I guess it wasn't meant to be at that time. But
Pat,
yes.
Done something spectacular that I would have noticed. I would have been surprised.
you would have remembered. That's right.
Totally. Okay, you got to do something. You got to show up, show off.
Yeah. So you're still traveling quite a bit then.
Yeah, I do travel a lot in Asia, but a lot in China. But I do most of my readings here at home by Skype. It's all Skype.
Yeah.
Skype, because you can see a person, you get that connection. You can show the cards visually on Skype if they have the video on. So most of it's Skype, and it's jameswanless.com. You can find out about Skype consultations.
I'm going to make an appointment. I'll tell you, I'm gonna make an appointment because me and Delta have seen 2.4 million miles together, and I'm not that interested in putting a lot more into Delta. Is there anything coming down the pike that possibly a third set of cards, or are you really continuing to just grow and learn more? Because I'm assuming even with the cards, even though you created them, you're learning and growing even more.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this whole new book of mine, which is Voyager, the DIY, do-it-yourself mindfulness psychology, is a huge evolution of myself and the deck. But, people always say, why don't you do these cards? Yeah, I could do decks. I'm really good at systems and symbolic systems. I'm a natural. But do I have time? Not really. No. And actually, I have a book called Little Stone. And it's a wonderful little book. And I just got emailed last week by 2 people saying, why aren't these cards already? Well,
wow.
I've got to pay the rent.
That's an important aspect. We're back to San Francisco Bay, aren't we? Coming from the Himalayas.
Some things never change. Yeah.
Yeah. So folks can reach you at jameswanless.com or find you on Facebook. The next one we're going to do Voyager Do-It-Yourself Mindfulness Psychology. Can you give me a preview on that?
Well, what really the one thing that just comes up for me right now is this guy, Alvin Toffler, just died. Now, Alvin Toffler wrote Future Shock. Now, this is a book that goes back to the 70s, probably. Yeah, I think 60s and 70s. Talk about prescient. Talk about seeing the future. And he said the problem with the modern world is people are going to lose their own self-identity. And when you're not secure with myself, a sense of self, you are vulnerable to all sorts of psychological pathologies, which I find totally true.
Absolutely.
And, this book is about discovering who you really are, the self-identity as the universal human. And it goes back to the map of life, this Voyager map, because this is who you really, really are. I don't care where you grow up, what color you are, what ethnic group, what profession, what socioeconomic, I don't care about any of that. This is, in fact, who you are, and that's a great life anchor.
Wow. That is beautiful. I can't wait until we do that show. James Wanless, what's the one thing you want to tell our listening audience for today?
Keep believing in yourself.
Yeah.
Believe. Even if you don't believe, believe.
Believe. That's right. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. James, thank you so much for being a guest on Quantum Physics to Metaphysics with Life in Between and being a part of the show. And I look forward to our next program. So thank you so much for being here with me today, and we'll talk to you soon. Everybody out there, jameswanless.com. Look them up, get a session, find out who you really are. Let them help you. Thank you so much. This is Patti Conklin, Quantum Physics to Metaphysics.
There's much more about Patti Conklin, her certified associates, her new book, and courses that are available right now on the web at patticonklin.com. That's P-A-T-T-I, Patti Conklin, CONKLIN.com.